and go.
Hello, welcome to the tutorial.
I'm sorry, could you do that again with a bit more energy?
Sorry, I only slept for like 3 hours. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the tutorial. If you learned something, good for you. Today we're talking about.
Well, it's at the end already. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the tutorial.
Wasn't our original intro was
if you're here to learn something.
If you learn something, you're
no.
You're here to learn something. You're right.
You said the ending.
This is the outro.
Hey everybody, welcome to the tutorial. If you're here to learn something, here's a fact for you. Dave has only slept 3 hours, so this is going to be great.
and I'm leading today.
And he's leading today.
So what are we talking about?
Today we're talking about the Japanese trope of Isakai.
So really quick,
for those who are unaware, for those who are unaware, Isakai is a story type where
whoa, I'm getting some serious echoes.
Echo?
Yeah, there's an echo.
Oh,
should be fixed now.
Hear it.
Should be fixed now. I turned off noise suppression on the next.
So much for checking all the audio shit before we start.
No, it was all checked. Ringo just did some dumb shit and messed it up.
So
okay.
Good.
Yeah, we're good. Keep
going.
going.
Let's try this again. We're talking about Isekai, which is a Japanese light novel, manga, and anime genre, and it basically the word itself means different world or other world, and it's generally about a main character from our world somehow being transported to another world. Oftentimes either by being summoned or being reincarnated.
Because ReZero.
Question. Why? Okay, I looked up a list of Isakai to see, if there's any on the list that I've seen, and Sonic X is on that list.
Yes, Sonic X is an example of a reverse Isekai.
An Isekai.
It's a reverse Isekai. And
by the way,
and season 3 is just normal ass Isekai. Although actually, if I can say something to that,
is an Isekai too.
Season 3 is an example of a rare version of Isekai where the protagonist purposefully goes to the other world. Normally the protagonist is normally the protagonist goes by complete accident, and in the first season of Sonic X, during the reverse Isekai point, that's exactly what happens. Sonic doesn't intend to come to Earth; he just ends up there.
So
Gargantia is on this list. I've seen Gargantia.
Well, yeah, that's technically true. So of course I'm going to say this,
that's
but
stretching Isekai a little bit, I think.
No, not really. He goes to a different world. It's just not necessarily a different dimension, but it is a different world.
Okay.
Physically, it is a different world.
Well, okay, so Isekai can also be, instead of just going to a different world, it can also be that you travel in time. So, for example, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Inuyasha is considered Isekai, but technically, the main character doesn't go to another world. She just goes back in time to something from a long time ago. But that long time ago is basically like another world to her.
So of course I'm going to say this, but there's a webtoon, which I mentioned when we did our webtoon episode, but it's called Muted. And the important thing here in context to Isekai is that the main character summoned a demon named Dendro to her world, and some of the stories about their relationship and how they are dealing with the main character shit, basically. But the creator of this webcomic tweeted the other day, technically, from Dendro's perspective, Muted is an Isekai, and I was like, God damn it.
You know, what's funny about that is we would consider that another reverse Isekai. Because he came into our world, not someone from our world going into the other world. So that's I wanted to briefly mention there are actually 3 subgenres of Isekai, and they're all Japanese in name. So bear with me because I'm terrible at speaking other languages. So you have reverse isekai, which we have mentioned multiple times now.
That's not in
Which is when
Japanese.
someone from another world comes to our world.
It's in English. What are you talking?
Then you have. I have no idea how to properly pronounce this.
Spell it.
Isekai 10e or 10i. It's the word 10 apostrophe I. I don't know properly how to pronounce that. But that is if the protagonist is summoned or moves through a portal to the other world. And then you have Isekai Tensei, which is when the protagonist dies and is reincarnated into the other world. So something like
reincarnated
something
into
like
another
Saga
world
the-
with my cell phone.
I was gonna say like Saga of Tanya the Evil, or that time I was reincarnated as a slime, and definitely not the most horrible isekai to ever exist. Fight me, bitches.
Is that the name of an
Would be
isekai?
Tensei. Oh no! In another world with my smartphone, I hoped we would never mention that like at all.
And then of course
Say it
ReZero
3
and
times.
Konosuba are both also the same.
And apparently Sonic X.
No, Konosuba would be. ReZero would not be because the protagonist was summoned or moved through a portal to another world.
You're right. He didn't
And the
actually
fact that
die.
his superpower is to die and come back over and over once he comes to that world does not. Yeah,
I forgot he didn't actually die at the beginning.
No, so ReZero would be
Kazuma did though.
10E.
He died like a fucking idiot.
Yes, Kazuma would be an example of Tensei. Tensei is definitely the more popular one. One I've started watching recently that would also be 10i or 10e or whatever, however that's pronounced. I'm gonna say 10i, and that's probably completely wrong. But I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Is Cautious Hero, which actually I think you would like a lot.
Is that the one where they max out their defense stat or whatever?
No, that one is a really good one too. Although I would argue that one's a little bit like, how do I put that? Like the protagonist is kind of OP from the beginning and never really gets a serious challenge. I would argue
like that unless it's
I have a question for you, Dave. I don't know if you encountered this in your isekai research. I have several examples again of webtoons because that's sort of my main media rather than anime. But there's several examples I can think of off the top of my head where it's not the character doesn't necessarily die and go to another world, but it's like the world becomes something else, like or in this more specifically, like the world turns into an RPG more or less. Is that technically, does that fall under the isekai umbrella, or is there another category for that?
I did not find anything about that when I was doing my admittedly shallow research into isekai. Wikipedia didn't mention it.
Well, let's see if Google can solve that problem. Go on, keep talking.
So interesting fact, isekai as a genre actually comes from a couple of things. The first is that there's a traditional Japanese story called Urashima Taro, which is about a fisherman who saves a turtle. And in return for being saved, the turtle brings the fisherman to this amazing undersea kingdom. And Urashima, that's the name of the fisherman, stays in that undersea kingdom for what he believes to be a few days. But then when he returns to the surface, he finds it's been 300 years. And I would argue that that story is very similar to the story of Rip Van Winkle.
Story of what now?
Do you guys not know the story of Rip Van Winkle?
Rip Van Winkle?
Know what the fuck that is.
Oh my
only sort of.
Fucking uncultured swine.
What the fuck?
Okay, so Rip Van Winkle is the first myth of America. and well, I would argue it's the first real myth of America. So like,
The only American myths I
not
know about is Bigfoot.
to be specific, not a myth of the Native Americans peoples, but rather
like
the myth of
Teddy
um
Roosevelt America.
yeah, rather it's like the first major myth of the Europeans who came here and settled here as Americans.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the way that story goes, is that Rip Van Winkle is a henpecked husband, and his wife is bitching at him all the time, and he's kind of a layabout, lazy douchebag, and he eventually goes. He's getting henpecked, so he grabs his rifle and he gets his dog, and they go out to go hunting, and while they're out hunting, Rip comes across a party going down in a canyon, and he goes down and talks to the guys at the party, and they're like, "Yeah, bro, this is a party for everybody. You want to get drunk and hang out with us?" And they're all like big burly Norse type people, and he's like, "Yeah, bro, I'll get drunk and whatnot. Fuck my wife." And then he goes and parties up with them, and then
I'll
he
get
wakes up
drunk
the
and
next
fuck
morning.
my wife.
No, he's just like, he's mad about his wife. So he drinks with him, gets up the next morning, only the next morning is like 70 years later, and his dog is dead, gone.
Oh,
Well,
good.
rather his dog is a lot. Well, I don't know. I think his dog in the original story was dead and gone. His rifle is rusted to shit. He has no idea what's going on. He definitely feels way too stiff for a night of drinking. And he comes back to his hometown to find out, one, the British aren't in charge of America anymore. America has overthrown the British. And now there's a whole new set of heroes that everyone worships, and he knows nothing about them. And two, his wife is gone, his kids are grown up, and there's just because he has a Rip Van Winkle Jr. who turns out just like him, just a layabout who doesn't do anything. And he basically becomes the insinuation in the story is that he ran into the Norse gods and that he drank ambrosia with them, and ambrosia knocked him flat on his ass for 70 years.
Nice.
Please don't.
Please don't what?
So that's something I thought that the story of oh fuck, how do I pronounce this name? Urashima Taro is very similar. Although I'd be willing to wager Urashima Taro is probably an older story, considering Japan as a nation is older by a long cry.
Oh yeah.
Than the United States.
How old are we? We're like 200 and something.
Yeah,
yeah, we're getting close to 300 now, but
in Japan is like
Japan's
2000.
been around for like probably at least 1,000, like definitely. I think longer than 1,000. China's been around longer than Japan. China's been around for like 10,000 years. Like
we're like baby country,
the oldest. China, Egypt, and oh man, what's the other big one? Like the oldest countries in the world.
I don't know.
Egypt has literally been around since like the beginning of time. I know there's another one. There's another one that's been around. Since like the beginning of time.
I don't know, but that's sort of off topic.
But anyway, so the thing is, what I was trying to get at is Isakai is this is what's considered in Japan like the original Isekai story is Urashima Taro. But Isekai as a genre kind of started building after World War II. And we discussed this in our manga episode, but I'll briefly go over it, is that manga and by extension anime and that whole like art style was sort of born out of a desire in Japan after World War II to just the world sucks ass and we just want to look at cute things and forget the world is such shit. And as a result,
God,
as that was going
not an
on,
allegory for where we are now in the world. Boy, oh boy.
oh, totally, not at all. So
Yeehaw,
one of the things that happened with that is a lot of there's a lot of cross-cultural communication in that time period, and a lot of American culture was being assimilated by Japan. And Japan got to see things such as Peter Pan and the Chronicles of Narnia, Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, and A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, which is the one I want to talk about.
Oh boy.
I don't know nothing about that one.
They
but
kind of
you're also. I
that
also
with
wasn't
Urashima
ready. I also wasn't ready for you to say all those names and to realize they're all isekai genre. Boy, oh boy.
So actually, fun fact, and this is something I've run into in my somewhat shallow research. Fun fact is no, they're not isekai genre, and there is a reason for that.
But so, Peter Pan is like exactly isekai though.
Let me get there. So in the West, we wouldn't call it isekai. We would call it either portal fantasy. Peter Pan would fall under portal fantasy. Or we would call it accidental travel.
I think these days portal fantasy has a little bit different meaning.
I know, but way back. Please try to remember back when olden people in the 1600s were naming things. They didn't realize that shit was going to change this big.
What do we call this thing? I don't know. Let's call it a fucking wheel.
So portal fantasy is basically the idea that there's a portal between our world and another world, and in some way, shape, or form, the protagonist uses it. Which would be like Isekai Tensei. Then you have accidental travel, which kind of also falls under Tensei, which would be something more like The Wizard of Oz or Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, where there was no intention of moving to another world or moving in and out through another world. So the Chronicles of Narnia would also be portal fantasy, by the way.
Whoops, I accidentally tripped into an interdimensional crack in the sidewalk.
So, well, I mean, tell me that's not what The Wizard of Oz is.
That's not what The Wizard of Oz is.
You're right. No, I'm thinking Alice in Wonderland. Tell me that's not what Alice in Wonderland is.
That's Alice in Wonderland, sure. Wizard of Oz was like,
you got
knocked the fuck out by a tornado. That's what happened there.
Yeah, but like, okay, so the tornado happens, and when the tornado puts your house down, you're in another fucking dimension. Like,
yeah, it's a powerful ass tornado, bro.
That's basically tripping over an interdimensional sidewalk crack.
No, it's not. It's being flung through dimensions by a tornado. There's a big difference.
Anyway, so you guys are really familiar with The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland. So to briefly talk about A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, it's an old English. Well, I don't know. It's English American. So it's older American. So it's more English than what we would consider American now, if that makes sense. But it's basically about this guy who somehow accidentally travels back in time to Middle Ages England and he is like an engineer doctor. So I'm
sorry. He's an engineer doctor.
No, what I mean is like he has a doctorate in engineering.
Okay.
No, he's not a medical doctor.
He just double fielded. He was like, I'm a doctor and an engineer.
I do believe he does eventually figure out like medicine and stuff while he's in the past. But a funny thing about that is there's a point early in the book where the guy who's telling the story, the narrator, is talking about how he was at a museum and they were looking at a suit of armor with a hole in it, and the museum tour guide was saying, we think this was one of the earliest examples of bullets being used against plate armor, and at the time they didn't make plate armor that thick, so the bullet went through the plate armor. And
And then he finds out how that happened, right?
The main character, who is no, the narrator isn't the main character. The narrator is narrating to you that he's telling a story that was told to him by another person, because that's how all these old English stories go.
Right, but I'm saying your main character, your fucking Connecticut Yankee, is the one that put the hole in the armor.
The Connecticut Yankee says, "Believe it or not, I was there to see it happen," and then he tells the story. And essentially, he goes back in time, and he doesn't become the king, but he becomes real close to the king.
I've shot the king.
That's also, the old line of, like, if you took a king and a normal man and you stripped them down naked, you wouldn't be able to tell which was which. That comes from a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. A man says this, and because he said it, the local noble, he had said if you took a nobleman and a normal person, the local noble had him locked up in prison. And the Connecticut Yankee, at this point, he had become one of Arthur's confidants, and he was kind of like going around the country trying to make sure all the, like, territories that Arthur held were properly running the territory, paying their taxes properly, all that shit. And while he was there, he had to check all the dungeons and find out what people were put in the dungeons, because Arthur had a reputation to uphold. And when he found this guy in the dungeon, he's like, that guy's actually intelligent. I'm not going to leave him in the dungeon. He's coming back with me. And so he goes on this whole adventure where he basically improves the world that was a lot. Like, he's the reason that a lot of medical knowledge and engineering knowledge happens. And the medical knowledge, they don't explain. I don't understand. I think the idea is that he's just so smart, guys, that he could just figure it out. And back then, that was like, okay, you could say that a super smart guy would know stuff like that. Nowadays, you'd be like, yeah, no, he's an engineering major.
Yeah,
he's not gonna just figure out medicine.
He can build bridges. He'll build a bridge to the hospital, but he's not so good with needles.
but a fun tag to that is in that time I was reincarnated as a slime, the main character is also an engineer, a civil engineer.
Well, that's a little bit different.
Okay, that's a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, so he builds, like, this whole city, or he makes all the plans to build this city, and him and his monster friends all build this huge city. And they explain that by early in the show, they build an aqueduct. And he mentions that he finally feels like all the work and effort to go through and get that degree is actually meaning something now and being used for something like it was supposed to now.
I have a question, Dave.
Go ahead.
So you've mentioned Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court as a isekai genre sort of thing.
It's accidental travel, but yeah.
Would Gulliver's Travels or The Time Machine by H.G. Wells?
The Time Machine would definitely fall under either Portal Fantasy or I don't know. I think it would have to be Portal Fantasy, because it wouldn't be accidental travel, because he didn't do it by accident.
Yeah, no, he did it on purpose. Which, by the way,
Gulliver's Travel, I'm not sure about. Gulliver's Travel definitely falls in a similar category. Again, I believe Gulliver went out on purpose to discover stuff.
He did.
But you also have to understand that something like Gulliver's Travel doesn't quite fall in the same realm, I think, because you look at, again, this is more from a historical standpoint. Back then, the world wasn't so well known. Like, nowadays, we've mapped the whole fucking globe. We know where everything is. We know everything about everything. Even the islands that are out in the middle of nowhere with tribes on them that haven't ever contacted the modern world. We still know they're there, and we know that they haven't contacted the modern world at all, but we don't go there because most of those tribes don't like new shit. Um, so
I will say
for back at that time, you gotta recall there's a sense of like Captain Cook went out and explored the world, and there was especially after Captain Cook went out and found Australia, there was a sense of like, oh my god, what other crazy shit is out there that we don't have any idea. We haven't mapped the whole world yet. Like there's so much shit we could find, and I don't know if that necessarily falls under that same sort of
Australia
isekai-ish
is
genre.
definitely the craziest shit, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Australia?
Yeah.
I'd say on a technicality, it probably isn't, but the spirit is definitely the same.
I'll say if any of our listeners have not read Gulliver's Travels, or especially The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, boy, you really should.
I'm pretty sure The Time Machine has a movie made out of it now.
I think Gulliver's Travels does too.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. See, so I don't know if you guys remember this. Go ahead, Jim.
Which one was the one where he goes to an island? Tiny view.
That's Gulliver's Travels.
That's Gulliver's Travels. Okay,
Yeah,
then yes.
that's him going to Lilliput.
So I don't know if you guys remember this, but way back, Mom and Dad brought home all these like comic books.
Yeah.
That were called the Illustrated Classics.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those was a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, which is how I know that story. But it was basically all these classic stories put in comic book form, which when you're 12 is way easier to digest. So you get the story, and then later you can go read the actual book when you're not so hateful of books. So,
yeah, that's how
then
I
you're like,
know.
oh, there's a lot more.
That's how I know
to this story.
Gulliver's Travels and The Time Machine, because they were those.
Yeah. Yep. The Gulliver's Travels, The Time Machines, The Swiss Family Robinson was one.
Mm-hmm.
What were some other ones? The Man in the Iron Mask. But that's getting off topic a bit. So I was wondering if you guys could think of first of all, any other stories you think might have inspired the isekai genre, and then any other story, and then any isekai that you hopefully think were really good, and which genre you think they fall into, which subgenre of isekai they fall into. And then when we're done with that, I'll discuss some of the specifics about why isekai isn't technically the same as portal fantasy or accidental travel.
Boy, oh boy, things that inspired isekai.
I mean, you could just start by talking about isekai shows if that's something you've got in your head. And
I mean, I feel like you said most of the ones I would have thought of, like Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, those are the big ones. Those are the ones everyone mentions.
Maybe a little bit Journey to the Center of the Earth, but not so much.
I think that's a newer story.
Journey to the Center of the Earth? That was one of the illustrated classics, bro.
Was it?
Yeah, that was in that collection.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong. I think of it like because there's a new movie made of Journey to the Center of the Earth like every few years.
I'm not talking about the fucking Dwayne Johnson bullshit.
And I just like I remember Journey to the Center of the Earth being big when I was like.
First of all, if you really want to watch Journey to the Center of the Earth, go watch the fucking old ass Dolph Lundgren version.
Oh my god, Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name. There's a lot of animated shows, or shows when I was a kid where it's like it would start in the real world with actors, live action, and then like a character would be transported to an animated world, and most of the movie would be animated,
Oh, like
and
Rockadoodle Doo.
then Rockadoodle Doo would be one, yeah. Um, Although I would argue that I'm not sure if that's technically Isekai, because technically he was still on the same farm.
Yeah, just the entire world became animated.
And animals became anthropomorphized.
And also that may be, in my opinion, the greatest musical of all time. But
Oh man,
a lot of people do not agree with me.
I think that is the greatest musical Elvis ever did of all time. But
oh yeah,
a lot of people won't agree with me. They'll be like, "No, Blue Hawaii, dude."
Most people these days tend to say they either mention to me Hamilton or Wicked.
What, as the greatest musical of all time?
Yeah.
No.
I know a lot of people think Hamilton's the greatest musical of all time.
I
See, I
disagree.
don't know if I would say that Rockadoodle is the greatest musical of all time, but it's definitely Elvis's greatest musical of all time, I think.
It's a fantastic
That's my
movie.
opinion. To be fair, the only musicals by Elvis I've seen are that and Blue Hawaii, and I like Rockadoodle more. So
Rockadoodle was great.
I know Elvis did like 4 or 5 movies at least.
I have the songs in my head, but I can't sing them because copyright.
There's another one I'm thinking of, and I don't know the name of it, but I remember that there's like a box that takes the kids to another world.
Oh. Spirited Away. Spirited Away. Does that count as Isakai?
I think it does.
Spirited Away.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen that one.
You don't. Oh my god.
What's the story of that one?
That's one of the Miyazaki
I've seen pictures
films.
of this, but I haven't seen it.
That's a Studio Ghibli. Yeah. So basically,
I haven't seen most of the Studio Ghibli. It's hard to watch Studio Ghibli because they're all Disney, and if you don't do it on Disney's platform, then
oh well, I rented it. I rented it from the library. So fuck you.
Well, you know.
Anime film Spirited Away was one of the first worldwide known isekai anime films.
Yeah, because like the main character, she goes to a village, like a scenic village with her parents. I guess they got lost and they were looking for directions or something like that. And they go to this village and her parents start eating food that's meant for the spirits. And they get turned into pigs, and then the little girl ends up in the spirit world and has to do a whole ass adventure to get her parents back.
I'm just trying to think. There's like interesting.
I saw it. It's a really good. Oh, it's such a good movie. It's a real good movie. If you ever have the chance to watch that movie, you definitely should. It's very good.
I've seen about 15 minutes of it.
I've seen the whole thing.
I'm trying to look up.
You've probably seen pictures of No Face a lot.
Oh, I've seen pictures of No Face, and I've seen pictures of the main character girl. Mm-hmm. So I imagine it has to do with that. But this is bugging me. There's an American movie which is animated, and the only things I remember from it is there's a box that takes the kids to another world, or at least one kid to another world. Most of the movie is animated, and there's something about a couple of kings, and one king is all about letters, and one king is all about numbers. And I don't think that was like a major plot point of the film. That was just one of the things he runs into while he's in the weird animated world. And at the end of the movie, he comes back, and then he's on the phone with his friend, and his friend starts describing the box come into his room. And the guy's just like, just let it happen, basically.
And then his friend fucking dies. No.
Let me see. I googled something here. Let me see if I can find out.
The films with
Secret of Kells? I don't think that's it.
I don't know.
No.
I don't think so. Oh, we're definitely looking at like
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I mean,
I don't know if that would be a
I don't know.
semi isekai one.
what about Indian in the Cupboard?
I don't know because I don't think. I mean, if that is anything, is reverse, but I don't think so.
Little Nemo, the Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland.
See, here's the thing. I say I looked at list of films with live action and animation both, but animation is such a wide term that what's it called? The Flight of the Navigator is on this list.
Titan AE, excuse me.
That's not isekai at all.
What about Atlantis?
Ooh, I don't know because I think that one probably is not going to be considered that, largely because they show a big chunk of the movie is showing how they got there.
Oh my fucking god, the Page Master.
That absolutely is.
That's 100% isekai.
That absolutely is.
Oh, that might be my favorite Macaulay Culkin movie ever.
It's a pretty good one. It's just bothering me so much right now. I'm trying to find
I'm also trying to find this thing that you're talking about.
yeah, but I'm not seeing. See, one thing that really is bugging me, a lot of these ones when you flip over them, it shows like a picture.
Would James would James and the Giant Peach also count as isekai?
Does he actually go to another world in that one?
Not.
Doesn't.
Because I know it feels like another world.
I'm pretty sure they go to another world and then they fly back to New York in a giant peach.
Well, because what I recall is that the way that one went was that there was a what do they call it? His parents talked about going to see the Empire State Building, which is the tallest building in the world, and that's how dated that show is. Because even by the time that that I was watching that movie, they weren't that wasn't the tallest building in the world anymore. Let me think. There's a bull or something, some evil bull creature that apparently takes his parents. Although I'm pretty sure that's just supposed to be a allegory for a very bad storm.
It was a rhino, though.
Oh, was it a rhino? Because it always feels like to me, looking back, like I never, even as a kid, I really never understood like what the fuck is this rhino thing and why. Like, there's no like, how do I put this? There's no like a myth about a rhino or anything that would make sense. And his parents weren't like from another country, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I feel like there's definitely something there lost in translation. And I always thought after growing up, I was like, oh, that's just an allegory for this massive storm because it always shows up like a cloud.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's never like an actual rhino. It's just a rhino-shaped cloud. And I feel like that's kind of more what it is. I'm still trying to find this fucking movie.
I know. I'm also trying to find it.
Oh, actually, here's a good one. Kevin and I watched this a while back. I don't think you guys have seen it, but I would say it falls under Portal Fantasy, and I don't know if it falls under Isekai. It's called The 10th Kingdom. And the basic idea is that all the major Disney princesses and everything are all princesses of separate kingdoms, and there's a total of 9 kingdoms in the realm. And our world is a prophesized 10th kingdom.
Uh-huh.
But you can't really go to that kingdom normally. So something happens. I don't remember how it happens, but a portal of some sort opens up between the two worlds. And the main character kind of goes back and forth a little bit, but she spends most of her time in the world of the 9 kingdoms with a weird ragtag group of characters. I don't even remember all of them. I remember the bad guy is a witch, and her main minion is the king of the trolls. I remember that she briefly meets Snow White, or the spirit of Snow White, who gives her the old the whole the old poisoned comb from the original Grimm fairy tales version of Snow White. And she's supposed to use that in some way, shape, or form to kill the witch, I believe. And my favorite line out of that show was somewhere along the line they go to this village and they meet that there's an actual person there called the village idiot, and that's his job, is to be the village idiot. And the village idiot watches over this this well that's supposed to like burst forth with water one day. And the reason that the village idiot and his entire bloodline is considered a bloodline of village idiots is because it's been like 2,000 years or something since this well has had water in it, but they insist that it will one day have water again. And then the current village idiot is this dopey, real idiotic fucker. And when they beat the bad guy at the end, part of that is to undo the spell that kept the. And this is more of a sidebar in the show. It's not like anything major, but part of that is it undid the seal that kept that well from bursting forth with water. So the well bursts forth with water, and then the guy yells out, "I am now a complete idiot," because he's complete in that the prophecy came true.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite part of that movie. But that's definitely like isekai-ish.
If I may, Dave,
Go ahead.
I found an entry here. The Phantom Tollbooth, 1970. It may be cheesy, but the 70s kids movie turned the concept of the imagination into real, if animated, place with the help of a toy toll booth. When Milo, a bored little boy, receives a mysterious present, it takes him on an adventure that also teaches him to love learning.
Sounds exactly like what I'm thinking of.
He drives his toy car through the toll booth. Who doesn't want to pay the toll, and turns from live action to animation as he goes on an adventure to Dictionopolis, words are fun, Digitopolis, numbers are fun, and the Mountains of Ignorance. Ignorance isn't fun. In order to rescue the princess's rhyme and reason, although its message gets a bit eye-rollingly obvious at times, it's a cheerful and fun trip.
What did you say? What year was this made?
1970.
Yeah.
1970. Yeah, well, that explains why.
Explains why it's so fucking strange, huh?
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, I think I kind of know like one single piece of this movie where he's like, take these tweezers and move this entire pile of sand.
I don't remember that, but yeah, that sounds like exactly what I'm remembering. Yeah. So I was thinking of that. Ringo, do you have anything you think, rather than let's say rather than something that inspired isekai, let's say something that's definitely Western but has a very isekai feel to it, like that?
You guys have kind of said all the ones that I know about.
ReZero.
That's not Western. He said Western.
But that's like actually isekai. I was talking like Western shows or Western movies that are also sort of kind of.
Let me do a quick little Google search.
Well, while you're doing that, so I originally came up with the idea to have this episode on the thought process of my thought process being like, oh, isekai isn't a Japanese concept. It's been around for eons. The Japanese are just putting a more modern spin on it. And I kind of think that's still true. But in my research, I did find that there are things that set aside the isekai genre from Western varieties of a similar genre.
Through the looking
Um, so,
Through
for
the
example,
Looking Glass.
through the
well,
looking
I mean,
glass.
Through the Looking Glass is Alice in
That's
Wonderland, basically. So,
Yeah,
well,
well,
I mean
pretty much.
that's the rest of Alice in Wonderland's story,
Yeah.
or rather, Alice in Wonderland is one piece of Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Um,
Just happens to
I
be the
don't
most
know,
popular
like,
one.
I would think, man, what's that comic Namesake?
Namesake, yeah. What about it?
Which is probably something that our watchers wouldn't, our watchers
I
wouldn't,
mean,
watchers, listeners,
if they
whatever.
listened to our episode on webtoons, they'd know about it.
So Namesake, probably most of those stories are sort of like that.
So like Jack
'Cause I
and the
think-
Beanstalk.
Yeah, that's the one.
This fucking Stargate count as a Portal Fantasy.
Stargate. I mean,
I mean, actually, it technically does, despite being science fiction, because Portal Fantasy doesn't limit itself to just the fantasy genre. Although I would argue it's a lot less. It's not very heavy on fantasy in that sense. In the idea that this is an actual military operation to determine the. I was going to talk about Gate too because it's similar like that. It's military action to determine the likelihood of peaceful relations with individuals on other planets. And I suppose that technically counts as a Portal Fantasy,
Who's probably
but
closer because it's more.
it's a very dark Portal Fantasy where the universe is kind of conquered already by a very evil force.
Wasn't there some game or show or something you were telling me about where like they create a portal and the whole like the fucking military invades through the portal or some shit?
I'll get there. So what I wanted to talk about with the genre of isekai is, for example, in Western media, no one dies and reincarnates in another world.
Well, yeah, because we don't heavily believe in reincarnation as a thing.
No, we don't. And when we do see like Western media that talks about reincarnation, it's more of the classical Hindu version of
also, I have an interesting blip on that radar, but I'll let you finish what you're doing first before I talk about that.
Another thing is in Western media, in isekai, you'll often have things like, if you've watched things like Konosuba or Rising of the Shield Hero, you have things like a leveling system or a skill set system, a sort of heads-up display thing that only the main character or people like the main character can see.
I don't know if there's like technically a Japanese term for that, but when I looked it up on TV tropes, it's called sudden interface.
Yes, so we don't see that sudden interface thing in Western media about going to other worlds. Usually, Western media. Another one that I'd actually like to point out is The Black Knight is another really great. I don't know if you saw that one. I believe it's Eddie Murphy, but I might be wrong. But the idea is this black guy goes back in time to Middle Ages, and they put a heavy emphasis on things like how they didn't have sanitation back then. The king, for example, goes and takes a shit, wipes his ass with his hand, and then goes and eats food without even washing.
That's gross.
Yeah, and to us that's disgusting. But back then they didn't really have the concept of washing your hands like that. Another thing that's common in isekai that I think is weirdly common in isekai is the other world you go to is very much a European fantasy world with a little bit of modern convenience, because it's like European Middle Ages, but we have magic, so we have running water, so we can wash our hands because otherwise it's gross here.
Well, of course,
But
bud.
there's so many isekai that are like that.
So can I touch
I
on the
think
point?
almost.
Can I touch on a
Go
point
ahead.
real quick? So as far as like reincarnation goes, and this is just a running theme with my life, so just live with it. But there's this webcomic I read. It's called "See You in My 19th Life," right? And the whole premise
heard of that one.
is there's the main character is a person who every time they die they reincarnate, and then I think it's at like the age of 6 or something they remember all their memories from their past lives.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that would fall under the isekai umbrella at all? Because they don't really go to
Well,
another
considering
world.
that the vast majority of the big, long-running comics on Webtoon are Korean, because that's where the website started. Yeah, of course they're isekai.
I mean, there's a ton of non-isekai ones, but
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying
I
that
find
like they
I find that
almost.
concept really interesting because it's not it's
To be fair, you don't have the sudden interface, but you do have a lot of the same tropes of isekai.
see
I
to
would agree.
me the idea of immortality is fascinating as a concept, um and to have something like that where it's like you're technically immortal, you just still live and die like a human. It's very, very
Well,
interesting to my brain.
on that note, they explored that in Wakfu with the bad guy Quincy, I believe his name was.
The evil, what's his butt?
The evil heliotrope guy,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
adult
that
dude.
one. Mm-hmm.
I want to say his
It's
name was
been a
Quincy,
minute since I watched.
but
Since I
his
watched
thing
that show.
was he reincarnated over and over again. But the problem was, even as a child, he'd remember everything, which it sounds like your character does. They remember at 6, but that's still a child. So he already knows everything he knew from his last life, and he went mad at the fact that after you do that so many times, I know everything. I already know everything. Why, like, everyone else doesn't remember though. So you'll have like a new set of parents that treat you like a child, and you're like, stop fucking treating me like a kid. I'm like 180 years, like I'm several thousand years old. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And at
Mhm.
some point, he goes mad, and he's like, I want something new. So he goes out of his way to do this, to make this whole plan to go travel across the stars, and then they come to a whole new world, and then he's satisfied for a while until he learns everything there is to know about the new world. And then he's like, all right, time for new shit again. And that's why he's the bad guy.
What? That doesn't sound like a bad guy. That just sounds like a fucking explorer.
Yes, but the difference is, so what he did was he purposely aggravated the enemies of the Eliotropes to attack them so heavily that they were forced to abandon their homeworld.
In order
Because
to go
he didn't want to
discover
go
a new world.
exploring alone, he wanted everyone to come with him.
Wow, that is being an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying that's an interesting, because your concept you're talking about is really cool. But I was just mentioning also, like, this is like one end of where that concept could end up. Obviously, I don't think if the main character is the person that does this, that actually I have a webtoon I read. It's called
also I was gonna say the
Everywhere and
main
Nowhere.
character. Oh, I read that one too. Yeah.
So
Oh boy, that's
that's one that explains both, that explores both sides of that. There is an evil version of the main characters that have gone through that exact same thing.
Yeah.
With the difference being that, unlike Quincy, they don't care that anyone comes with them. They don't care how many people they have to murder to have a new experience. they are just complete utter evil. And then you have the main characters going, that cannot be my defined future. I will not let that be my defined future. I go out of my way to spend time as a human, to do things here and have experiences because that keeps me human. That keeps me from turning into that.
But boy, oh boy, the two main characters are sort of stuck in places right now, aren't they?
They very much are.
And then you have what's his butt, the Greek dude who's just having the greatest time of his life.
Oh my god, he's my favorite. He's my favorite. I'm
he's
not even gonna
wonderful.
lie.
I mean, he's an absolute dick, but he's wonderful. He has like no regard for anything except himself.
Somehow that gets him by in the modern world, though.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, everyone's self-centered assholes in the modern world. So.
Well, to be fair, he landed in New York, so.
Man, trying to get back at it though. I was gonna mention another thing that's common with Isekai, which is also common with Portal Fantasy. Well, not as much Portal Fantasy, but definitely Accidental Travel is like you end up in this other world and it's not by your will that it happened. So like in a lot of
like ReZero
stories. Like what?
Like ReZero.
Yeah, exactly. Like
he just kind of sort of there suddenly.
He's just a gamer out late at night grabbing his snacks, goes to walk across the street and just boom.
Also,
okay.
Also, I may be a little bit ahead of the anime in that story, and boy, is the reason dumb. But I'm not gonna talk about it. If you, yeah, I won't spoil that.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for season 2 to wrap up so I can just binge watch the whole thing. Because that's how I normally do it.
I haven't even watched that show.
I think perhaps season 2 will explain it, but like, boy, is it dumb. It's real dumb.
How do I explain that one? It takes the Dark Souls concept of I die and become reborn again at a save point, and it puts it into an anime format. So the main character, it's a little different though.
My favorite part of that is where the eventuality of like realizing that it doesn't matter what he does because he can just restart his day by fucking offing himself or whatever.
I love how when he figures that out, eventually he's just like, you know what, fuck this, and he just like slits his own throat or some shit.
Where eventually it comes to the point where like his obsession gets so great that like the only person he really cares about him is like, fuck you, I'm leaving. And that's when he realizes he really fucked up. But it's fascinating to see him go through that whole like loop of madness.
Please tell me at least that in the arc that is season 2 right now, he grows a bit, because I know he grows a little bit in season 1. My favorite eventuality in season 1 was the one where we find out, oh yeah, if what's her name dies, her little cute, adorable spirit pet is absolutely a horrifying monster that will murder everything.
Yeah. I think the end of season 1, like he grows a lot from that into season 2. Because like by the time the fucking madness person, fucking Beetlejuice, shows up, like he's already been through madness. So when the guy tries to use madness on him, he's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I think in one of the eventualities, he like pretends to go mad with him, and then at the end he's like, yeah, I was never interested.
He's
in
like,
shit.
he's like, bitch, you thought.
You thought. Go fucking die. I think that's the eventuality where he wins.
I love though watching him go through that whole madness and like like fucking proposing to Felix. Felix, I love you. And Felix is just like, that's gay, bro.
Bro, I hate that. It's like,
it's fucking fantastic.
I mean, that's a great. How should I say it? I have a love-hate relationship with that thing because, like, it's a dude who's definitely dressed up like a chick, and so it's really easy to think, oh, well, I mean, he must be gay, right?
I would argue that he's simply dressed up as a cat boy.
Whatever. But like he wears dresses and shit.
But
and
he
in
also
our world,
but he also wears a suit though.
He does wear a suit a few times. That is true. But I know there's like most of the time he's all dolled up, and it's really easy to confuse him for a girl because of how dolled up he is. And then when he's like, "Yeah, I'm a dude," it's pretty. I would argue that the moment that he says that, because of the way he says it, it's pretty clear he's not gay. He's just super flamboyant. He's like John Mulaney. Did you mark that one as gay? Oh no, was I supposed to?
He's just super into cross-dressing. Like that's whatever.
Yeah. But it's really easy because this happens in our world all the time, and it kind of makes sense, I think. From
also, I would argue
Subaru's perspective.
I would argue that the master, what's his name, the master of the mansion, is far more flamboyant than Felix is.
You know what? You are absolutely right, but he never comes off as gay. He comes off as like the most manly motherfucker.
Weirdly,
despite all of that.
Yeah.
Because he has that sort of energy of like, I'm the boss, bitch. You do what I say.
Yeah. Oh, and he ain't afraid to show it when he has to either.
Oh, yeah, and he has the power to back it up. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He's definitely evil.
Ringo,
but like,
were you gonna say something?
Was I? I don't think so.
I think he checked out a
like
long time ago.
To talk. We're just geeking out about this thing. What I wanted to mention is most stories. It's not by the will of the protagonist that the protagonist ends up in another world. They're either summoned there or reincarnated there. Like even in Konosuba, he doesn't want to go to this other world. You could argue it's by his will. He dies, and Aqua is in charge of reincarnating him somewhere. And it's more like the situation is, well, either I get to keep being me by choosing this option, or I go into the normal reincarnation pool and everything that was the person I am dies. And who the fuck wouldn't be like, I would rather not have my existence as I know it end? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then Kazuma fucking outsmarts everybody.
He has a different point of view than everyone in that world.
I love that show.
I am an advocate for true gender equality.
You may take one item with you. Okay, I'll take you. Wait, hold on.
Hold on, that's not allowed. And then the god comes down. Another guy comes down. Actually, you're a bitch, so it's totally allowed.
The other god who doesn't like Aqua.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you find out later that god just really doesn't like her. So he was like, actually, that's totally allowed. Get the fuck out.
Yeah. Like, wait, I have an excuse to kick you out now? Okay, bye, bitch.
Hell yes. Anyway, what I was going to say is, you mentioned it earlier, the anime where there's like a military operation to go to the other world. It's called Gate. And the Gate starts out with this guy who says, I only do my job to make money so that I can be an otaku outside of making money. And that dates it because they wouldn't call it, nowadays you wouldn't hear it called otaku, even in Japan. It'd be called a NEET or something. Although he's not technically a NEET because he is employed.
Dun, 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 dun. I kill people. Dun, 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 dun,
so,
for my wife.
So then, all of this... My God.
Can't talk
so
right
all
now.
of a sudden, right? So all of a sudden, like all these fucking creatures and medieval bullshit starts just appearing in the middle of Tokyo, and they come through like an army and they just start murdering people. And this guy like he's pissed first of all because he was on his way to an anime convention and that's not happening now.
How dare you son of a bitch!
So he basically like, first of all, he starts running up to police officers and like telling them what to do and shit. But secondly, he does back it up by the fact that he just kicks ass like as soon as he engages with these fuckers. And you're just sitting here going, who the fuck is this? Because at first I thought, oh, this is just nerd rage, whatever. But then he goes up and starts talking to the cops, and they just kind of accept his orders, like. And I'm going, what the fuck? And then you find out,
yeah, okay.
like 10 minutes into the show, oh, he's a goddamn lieutenant in the military. No wonder people are taking his orders. Would have been nice to know that going forward, because I was just like, this is the most bullshit ever. Because you don't know what his job is. But I think they did that on purpose. Because they didn't want you to know what his job was until the moment it happens, and then it's supposed to be super impactful. But I was just kind of like, that's dumb the whole time. But anyway,
it's kind of like those. It's kind of like those movies where it's like, I'm just a regular airplane passenger. Psych, I'm the fire marshal.
I love that you said it that way, because that highlights how dumb it is. Like
it really
I'm
is.
Actually, insert job title here.
Yeah.
And because of whatever reason in job title, I'm actually super badass more than anyone who actually works that job title actually is. So
Have you seen?
I could make a whole fucking show about how badass security guards are, and I could make it super believable. But the fact is, most security guards sit on their ass and watch YouTube all day and don't do anything. We're not badass.
Have you seen the movie Get Out?
No.
Okay. Well, do you care if I spoil the ending for you a little bit?
I don't know what the movie is, and I don't care.
Okay, great. So basically, the main character gets rescued at the end, and by rescued, I mean his lazy ass, pizza eating, video game playing, fat ass motherfucker best friend shows up in his like beater fucking Chevy or whatever, his little 4-door Kia, and like rescues him. Because he's like walking down the road all beat to shit. And his buddy pulls up and he's like, yo, I'm here to rescue you. And the guy's like, how did you know where I was? And his buddy's only response is, TS motherfucking A. I'm like, the TSA has nothing to do with this. What the fuck?
I would have believed it more if his gamer best friend had some level of hacking knowledge.
It's like,
because
yeah,
he's a
but
gamer.
He's just a TSA agent. All he does is check people at airport security. That has nothing to do with it. I will grant you the TSA does do a little bit more than that. Because I tried to become a TSA agent once. There is some level of actual combat readiness requirement that you have to have, because an airport can be attacked as a terrorist target. And when I say actual combat readiness, I mean there is actually some level of training that goes into it. That being said, I don't believe the TSA teaches you to hack track people down. Yeah.
No. That's not a skill set that the TSA is required to have.
Like, bruh.
And just so we're clear, the TSA isn't military, isn't even at the level of police, honestly. It's just they need to know that if shit hits the fan, you can handle yourself. And I didn't pass that check, so.
So you can't handle yourself. Good to know.
Not by the TSA standard. No, I can't. Also, part of that is my response when shit hits the fan is to grab my gun, and you aren't allowed to do that when you're a TSA agent.
Quick, get the gun. Oh, right. They took that away from me.
All right. Get the taser. Yeah, okay. I don't have that either.
The pepper spray. Oh, shit.
Brandish the stick.
Sees the janitor. Quick, give me that broom.
Stick with longer reach.
Yeah. You walking up to a terrorist with an AK and you're like, I've got a broom, motherfucker. That's when they just shoot you.
Ooh,
like...
he Jackie Chan. Yeah. Which is a reference that nobody listening to this show is going to get. But
I get it.
shoot, Cypher. They've got weapons and you've got a broom.
But what I wanted to mention is that Gate is another one where the protagonist does go into another world, but he does so willingly. I mentioned earlier Sonic X Season 3 was like that as well. Chris becomes a scientist in his world and purposely creates a portal to Sonic's world in order to go meet Sonic again. In this one, after the gate opens, the gate is sort of like contained by the military, and then the military sends out an initial. They send out an initial like actual military force, which captures a hill and basically just murders the medieval army that comes to try to throw them off it. And then after that's done and they've got an established base of operations, the main character is sent through as a forward scout unit whose job is to go like figure out what are the nations of these worlds, can we establish diplomatic relations with them, et cetera, et cetera. And also, by the way, do they have any oil?
Because USA.
So can I ask? I'm pretty sure Tokyo is not in USA.
No,
can I Japanese. Ask? Would you say that Portal got secured and contained and quite potentially protected?
Bruh. If you know what he's talking about, you know what he's talking about. If you don't, you don't.
Okay, let's move on.
I was going to mention that in Gate, one big thing is they have a president of the United States character who looks like Donald Trump.
Oh my.
And he is like, one of his big things is he wants Japan to fail at doing what Japan is doing, which, to be fair, Japan does want to know if there's any resources to exploit, but they're not specifically there for like oil or whatever. They're there more for like I don't know, for like metals and mining ore and stuff like that.
Rare earth they would minerals. Prefer
to establish diplomatic relations with the various nations and purchase the right to mine for minerals. Whereas the American president is actively trying to sabotage shit politically on our side of the portal. He wants Japan to fail because he wants an excuse to send the U.S. Marines in there to determine whether there's any oil.
I have to know. I have to know this. Do they address, like, do they go like, we'd like to purchase the rights to do whatever. Here's our paper money. And they go, what the fuck is this shit? Give us coins.
I haven't gotten that far in the show so far, but I do know that there's been several instances of the Japanese Defense Force aiding. So, like, for example, there's a group of soldiers, and in this world, there's different gods that are worshipped. One of the gods is the god of warfare and death, and to be specific, that god, despite being the god of warfare and death, is actually a pretty cool god, because for him, warfare and death is all about about the honor that you find in warfare, and you are to conduct yourself with honor, and there is a very strict honor code for conducting war.
Yeah, that sounds like Japan.
So, well, this isn't the Japanese. This is another group of people, but
it's made. This anime is made by the Japanese. No.
True. So there's a group of these people who are survivors of the attack against the Japanese Defense Force. You know, the attack where they brought swords and spears to a gunfight.
Yeah.
So basically, the people who remain basically become twisted followers of the war god, and they just want to gain glories in battle to show their god. So they become like this massive army of bandits that just moves from place to place to place. It starts like burning down towns and shit. And so the next town on their path happens to be trying to figure out how they're going to defend themselves defend themselves against this group when the forward they call them scouts, but they gave them things like RPGs and 50 cal machine guns. So I'm going to
I
say
was
the
gonna
forward
say,
assault unit.
can we call him? Can we just call him Japanese John Wick?
He's not. He's so not.
He's not.
He spends half the journey talking to his enlisted buddy about how much they like cat girls and elves and elf women.
Yeah, so Japanese John
and
Wick.
Legitimate goth lollies and shit. It's cringy as fuck.
Yikes!
They meet a cleric of the war and death god.
You lost me at that one.
Yeah, no. I'm saying that this is actually shit that they say, right?
Oh my fucking god.
I don't agree with it. It's cringy as fuck. I'm just saying this is shit they say in the show.
Does he like charge into battle yelling like, your waifu is garbage?
He should. To be, I'll give the main character this. When the shit hits the fan, he absolutely turns into a military leader and like, fuck everything else. I'm here to make it through this fight. There's a point where they fight a dragon, and in the middle of fighting the dragon, an elf girl that they've saved from a well, who the medical crew who's at the back of they've got her set up in the back of the truck that the lieutenant is driving, and they're trying to like treat her because she's got hypothermia. So they pulled all her wet clothes off and everything. They're back there treating her. And to be clear, we don't see any of that. And she's currently wrapped under a blanket and everything because they're just trying to get her body temperature back up.
Mm-hmm.
And during this whole thing, the only person we see who talks about this is the medical person who's dealing with her, and that individual never like
he's never like, oh, titties. He's like, all right, we need 300 cc's of this. He's like, quick, get the blanket.
They're very much just like trying to do what they need to do. And in the middle of this, they get attacked by a dragon. They're a convoy, and they're protecting like a convoy from a town that's evacuating because there's a dragon in the area. They get attacked by said dragon, which they end up winning that battle by firing an RPG and blowing a hole in the dragon's wing. At which point the dragon goes, "I did not sign up for that," and just fucks off.
So the dragon with the personality.
He doesn't say anything. The dragon just kind of has this moment where he like roars and he like looks over at his wing and he's like, oh, "Okay, fuck that," and he leaves. He doesn't say anything. Like he's not. As far as we know, the dragon's just an animal. It's not sentient.
The
dragon has burned down the elven village.
Nothing has my kind of power. Kaboom!
Exactly that. I am the Lord of Fire. Boom! Why does fire burn my wing?
I think I need to go home and rethink a few things.
So during that fight, the elf chick gets up, realizes they're under attack by the dragon, just straight up stands up and rushes to the front of the truck, buck ass naked, and starts trying to, in her language, tell the lieutenant what to do. And for most of that thing, even though the lieutenant looks over and sees that she's naked, most of that entire interaction is him going, "I don't know what you're saying, dumb bitch." I'm trying to keep my men alive. You're not helping. So I will give him that. He definitely shifts gears when it comes to like in the middle of a fight. That is not a priority right now. The priority is making sure I actually live to bone again one day.
Yeah.
I'll give him that much.
What a champ.
But like I just bring it up because they actually have a conversation. And when you meet this is the point where I kind of stopped watching the show. When you meet the cleric of the war and death god, she is one of these women who she's definitely an adult, but she has a small frame and looks almost like a child. So yeah, she's a lolly, and she dresses in all black and red because she's the death god cleric. So him and his enlisted buddy are like, "Oh my god, a legitimate goth Lolly, when they find her, and I was like, I will through this for a minute. And then they get to where they actually defend the city, and you find out that the way that the death god gets his clerics to like kill things when it's time to kill things is they basically give them constant orgasms until they do. And then I was done with the show and I wasn't okay with watching it anymore.
What the fuck?
Yeah, Ringo's over here like, I'm so glad I checked out 20 minutes ago.
What how did this go from exploring anime world to fucking interspecies reviewers?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. That was the point when I was like, all right, I'm done watching this show. Because this is clearly this character, the lolly chick is clearly setting up to be a main character, and I don't want to see that again. So yeah. Because like she starts having this weird reaction, and of course this creeps out everyone in the unit, by the way, as soon as this starts happening. And eventually the elf chick, because at this point the elf chick's learned enough English to sort of brokenly communicate.
Apparently she's learned enough English to wear fucking Converse. According to the pictures I'm seeing.
Is she wearing Converse? Well, actually, a lot of, to be fair, a number of the characters when they get brought...
She looks like she looks like Southeast American country girl.
Yeah, I was going to say, her and a number of other characters, and this is not specific to the female characters, her and a bunch of other characters who kind of are like refugees and don't have anywhere to stay, are at least temporarily brought into the Japanese Defense Force camp. And while they're there, they get like clothes portioned out to them, but they're clothes from our world, so they don't look like fantasy garb at all.
Wait, okay, so this isn't Steins Gate. This is a different thing.
No, I'm not. I've never watched Steins Gate. I don't know what Steins Gate's plot is.
I don't either. I don't have a goddamn clue.
But no, this was just called.
I'm guessing
Gate.
This is the lady with the giant axe you're talking about.
Yeah, she has like a big.
Because this is like 90% of the fucking pictures I get when I look up Gate anime. It's just this character.
Are you gonna be posting it in the chat? I can't see anything right now.
I wasn't planning on it.
All right. I was gonna say, because you're saying this character, but then like
I just wanted to know if it was specifically marketed as a hentai, and you just missed it. I don't know.
It's not a hentai, unfortunately. It really
it's on Crunchyroll, so it's not.
It really should be.
Interesting.
I mean, here's the thing. To be fair, most of the show isn't, but there's just a few moments when I really have to question. And I haven't gone that far. Like, there's definitely some story setup that's been done. Because, like I talked about, on our side, the American president is trying to, like...
my God.
sabotage the Japanese efforts.
I can't.
Go ahead, boy.
I can't. I just looked up the list of characters and the names immediately. I've lost my shit.
I want to know what you're
fucking
looking at.
Rory Mercury, Pina Colada, Layli Laliana. What the fuck? What are these names? Zorzal L. Caesar.
Zorzal L. Caesar is the king, I think. Well, L. Caesar is the name of the royal family.
You have, like,
I don't know.
I'm assuming this is the main character, Yoji Itami. Because that's like the most normal sounding name. Bartholomew. Yeah. Beef Eater.
Any of the
Japanese
Japanese sounding characters are just members of the JDF.
Mabel Forn. Mamma Mia. What the fuck are these names?
Bruh.
I can't with this bullshit. What the fuck?
Hold on. Because you said Rory Mercury. That's the goth chick. I didn't even remember the blue-haired chick. Oh man, how did you pronounce that a minute ago? Lalina, something like that.
Tuca Luca.
I'm trying to find the American president. I love how they just straight up don't have that listed. The American president guy. No, Molt Sol Augustus is the king. No, Zorzal El Caesar is one of his generals. Okay. Oh my god, her name really is Pina Colada. I didn't even notice that. I was too busy going like, nope, hate this, hate that, hate this thing too, to like notice this shit.
I hate this, and I have just looked it up.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Man. So Takeo Kurata, by the way, is his enlisted buddy that he talks about his preferences in women with.
Okay.
And then the two girls are basically there just to tell the guys that they're creepy assholes.
Grand.
So I was gonna say that they have lined up some story. I just don't know if I can get to the story through all the bullshit. Because like on the Empire side of the gate, on the fantasy side, the king was worried because he's the one who sent the initial army through to Tokyo, and they got slaughtered. So now he's worried that the lords under him will.
Well,
so he's like the high king, and there's a bunch of like lesser kings.
I found the president of the Russian Federation.
Okay. I don't recall that character showing up yet. What's the word I'm looking for? I was gonna say, so this like high king guy, he figures out that like basically if the other kings figure out that he's weakened and his army got thrashed, any of them could just sort of show up and take the throne from him. So he does this whole big ass call to arms thing and gets all the other lords to pledge their military might to go attack the hill where the JDF set up. And they get slaughtered, which is what he wanted because he didn't want them to have enough power to overthrow him. So like that,
obviously.
Like they've established shit like that. So like that king is an asshole because he's willing to throw people's lives away for power. The pink-haired girl, Pina Colada, is his daughter. And she was sent out basically to find members of the JDF, capture them, bring them back to the kingdom, and interrogate them. And she's kind of split on that because she was supposed to defend. She comes across the town that wants to defend themselves from the remainder of that force that got murked by the JDF, and these guys help her defend the town, and they're clearly not the same. Like they might be part of the JDF, but they're clearly not the same group that like took over the hill and murdered a bunch of people, and they're there for a more diplomatic purpose. So now her and the blonde chick with armor are at odds because the blonde chick with armor is like, no, we do what we must for our country, and
he's sorry, I found the United States president.
Did you?
His name is Daryl.
Yes, his name is Daryl.
Oh my
Jesus Christ.
Hang on, I'm gonna put this one in the fucking chat. Holy shit.
It's a good ass likeness, isn't it?
Right. Here you go.
But anyway, I was just trying to say, like,
enjoy that one.
Yeah, that's him in a nutshell.
Oh my god.
Ain't he brilliant?
He's a fucking asshole.
Well, of course he is. He's the president of the United States.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Oh man, he is a caricature, that's for sure.
Please calm down,
Please
Mr.
calm
President.
down, Mr. President. It says. He's mad. That I bet this is happening later in the story, and the Japanese have managed to establish some kind of diplomatic relation, and now he's pissed off because his plan ain't gonna work. Because he hasn't done that yet in the anime that I've seen.
Oh my god.
Part of me
What
wants
a
to go back and try to
fucking-
figure out the rest of that story. Part of me is like, no, just stay the fuck
Just
away.
read the article on the wiki.
Yeah, yeah, right. That'll tell me everything I need to know. Oh man. But the point of that wasn't really to go off on Gate. It was just to talk about how like that was an instance where the guy goes through the gate on purpose. So I mean, you can
Mhm.
argue like, oh, he was ordered to. It wasn't his will. But like, it. I mean, whatever. It's not like he didn't know what
I
was
was gonna
going
say,
on.
like, he's an otaku. He probably loves that shit.
I mean, it's very clear he does. He spends his entire road trip time
Wow,
blabbing
I
about
went into
his
real
waifu.
anime world.
Yep. And of course, like it's really hard for him and his enlisted buddy to keep their dicks in their pants around the real anime chicks.
Mm-hmm. So it is a hentai.
I mean, not technically. They don't actually like show anything or whatever, but it's super clear that given a lack of societal convention, they just fucking rape them. Which really makes me uncomfortable with the characters.
What the fuck? How is this a show?
Well, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is a show, so.
But that one's like way the fuck more decent than this one.
Oh yeah, it's
Based
so
on how
super
you're
decent.
describing it.
Super decent. An 8-year-old girl with her 8-year-old girlfriend who are totally not sexually involved whatsoever.
First
and
of all,
definitely not put in constant sexual situations.
Actually,
first of all, they're not dating, and that's all I'm gonna say about everything else you just said, because the rest of it's pretty true.
I was gonna say, all right, you better not even fucking argue with me on this shit.
The rest of it's
Like,
pretty
I'm
true,
cool.
and man, it's
I'm cool with
man, it's awkward.
Kobayashi and Toru. They're consenting adults.
Yeah, and
But
then
not the little girl dragon.
what's his
Also,
butt?
I'm not cool with Shimota baby.
I hate that so much. I'm like,
Oh,
what
but
are
it's
you
okay,
doing
'cause it's
to
a
this?
guy-
What are
it's a
you
guy
doing to
being
this poor
sexually-
child? He's traumatized.
Yeah, but it's okay because he's a guy.
No, but
It's not.
I'm just saying that's the opinion.
Also,
To be fair, Kobayashi came under a lot of fire recently, but not because of the guy being sexually assaulted. No, it's because they added a new character who's a 14-year-old girl who's also being depicted in a lot of sexual situations. And
because
that's
she
evil,
has
so we have to
because
talk
she
about it.
has boobs bigger than
Because
fucking
she has giant honkers, yeah.
yeah.
Because every 14-year-old girl totally has massive honkers like that.
Not
That's a real
everyone,
thing
just
that exists.
not
in the world.
everyone, just that one. Also Fafnir
No, I'm
is
just saying it's unrealistic as fuck, is what I'm saying.
Fafnir
There's not
is
a
the
single
best dragon.
14-year-old girl in the world with honkers like that.
Fafnir's the best dragon.
You don't have to keep saying honkers.
Boobs. Does that make you feel better?
The honka bankaloos.
Yeah, I was
No
kind of
honkeros.
Dobot honkeros, yeah. Fafnir's great. He's like the best thing about the show, that's for sure.
Fafnir, I need some advice. Kill them all. Burn their farms.
You know what? Now that you bring it up, he does have the best advice. Kill them all. Get rid of this show. Burn it to the ground. But yeah, no. I'm just saying, like that's a problem in a lot of Japanese media, and in Japan, things like that are only recently starting to be brought up as real issues that the government gives a shit about. And for the longest time, essentially, as long as someone wasn't sticking their dick in you, it wasn't considered harassment. It wasn't considered rape. It wasn't considered anything wrong by the government. And that's only now, like, very recently changing. So a lot of shit has just flown under the radar. And the only reason it's changing now is because the rest of the world is basically saying, clean up your act or we're done with anime. And that's one of their biggest income streams.
They're like, hey, dipshits, stop doing this thing. And Japan's like, well,
basically,
it's not that big of a deal. And the rest of the world is like, it is a big deal. Fuck you.
Yeah. So America basically threatened that they were going to make it illegal to watch most anime shows if they didn't clean up their act. And America and Japan was like, "Oh shit, that's a lot of money. We should probably do something about that." And that's the only reason it's even being brought up. Because Europe already all but outlawed that shit. What's his name? What's Russia outlawed Isakai because you only need Mother Russia. Motherland only world you need.
I don't think Russia's that communist.
No, I don't think so either.
They really did though.
That sounds like North Korea.
I'm not joking. Russia legitimately outlawed Isakai. You cannot watch it in Russia.
Okay, I believe that. I don't believe that that's the reason.
I was just making a joke. Mother Russia.
I don't know what
Glory
purpose they would have in outlawing Isakai, but
they've outlawed a lot of stuff recently because Putin is trying to get people in his country to fuck, so he'll have a next generation to rule. I'm not joking. That really is a thing.
Very illegal. Hentai?
No, he literally banned Pornhub on account of go out and fuck an actual woman.
Go be a man and get your dick wet.
I'm not joking. He is on record saying that he went to Japan and asked the Japanese guy, "How did you go from having such a deficit in birth rate to bringing it up to only a minor deficit, and it's on track to finally, sometime in the next few years, maybe bump up enough to not be a deficit anymore?" And he was like, "We outlawed porn," and which they did super quiet. They didn't say it. They didn't say nothing to the world. They outlawed most forms of pornography in Japan for a while, and now Putin went, "That is excellent idea, my friend," and now he's doing the same thing in Russia.
He's also a dictator, but like,
you could argue that the Japanese diet might as well be run by a dictator.
I don't know, but I'm not here to talk about.
They're run more directly
politics
by corporations than they are so like we're not directly run by corporations. We're almost. Japan is a little closer to it than we are.
And Russia has just quote unquote voluntarily elected Putin like 6 times in a row.
Totally voluntarily, yeah. Why are we talking about this? Ew, you made it political. I don't know. It's probably me who made it political, but whatever. But I was gonna say, like,
so Isekai
some other things about Isekai that are different from Western variations are technically Isekai is a variation on the Western versions of otherworld stories. Like I said, it's almost always like a European fantasy world, and another major thing that isn't usually present in the Western variety of the genre is that the main character usually has some kernel of knowledge, some ability, or some superpower that, if it's a superpower, it's just a superpower. But if it's kernel of knowledge or an ability, it's something that's totally normal in our world, but extremely like amazing to the world that they're going to. Unless it's in another world with a smartphone, which is just completely 100% wish fulfillment, and God literally just gives him carte blanche to do whatever he wants.
You know what I'd rather see? You know what I would much rather
I got
see?
through 8 episodes of Gate, and that was up till then. That was the anime that I was like, that's the shortest run where I was like, nope, can't watch this anymore. I got through not even the full three episodes of In Another World with my smartphone before I was like, all right, fuck this.
I'd much rather see them go in another world with a fucking lightsaber and just see how that fucking shit goes.
Another world with a flamethrower.
Here's the thing I hate
in
about
another world with a tactical nuke.
Because they spent so long building this character up as just like absolutely impregnably perfect that I would argue the only way they could make the story interesting is for him to come up against an enemy who is just as capable as he is and find out, oh, I'm not the only one in the world who's basically God. And then have to actually confront all of his
can I just ask, is he quote unquote God because he has a smartphone? Is that what it is?
No. Okay. We're going to talk about this now. So here's the thing. He gets killed and he shows up in heaven, and God says, I was on a drunken bender and I accidentally zapped you to death with lightning and you weren't supposed to die yet. So I feel bad. According to the rules of the cosmos, I can't send you back to your world, but I can reincarnate you with all the memories of who you were in another world. And to make up for the fact that I basically accidentally killed you, I'll make you a little tougher to kill. Yeah, to make up for the fact I did that, I'll make you more durable, and I'll give you some power with magic, so that you're harder to kill in the new world as an apology. And so far, so standard. It's whatever.
Jesus.
Hmm?
That's the one you were calling Isekai Jesus?
This is the one I was calling Isekai Jesus. Yep. So then he says, is there anything you would like to bring with you to the next world? I'll give you one thing you can bring with you to the next world. And he asks if he could bring a smartphone with him. And God's like, well, here's what I'll do. You can bring the smartphone with you. You'll still have access essentially to the internet and everything, but you can't post anything. And I'll make it so your phone can't. You physically won't be able to do any of that because I can't have you communicate that you're still alive to the world you came from, because that's part of the whole can't go back to the other world thing, or can't go back to your original world thing. But I'll let you like have internet access or whatever, and I'll convert your phone so that you can use electric magic to recharge it rather than having to have a specific cord to do it, because electricity exists in this world, but electrical outlets and wires and shit don't. Then the only phone number that can call him is literally God, because no one else has a phone on this world. So when he gets to the world, God calls him initially just to be like, hey, just making sure you got there okay and everything's good and whatnot. So far, so standard, you know. So he goes, and of course, in typical Isekai fashion, the first party members he meets are a couple of girls with huge boobs. I'm talking huge, big honkabaloos. Because, you know, anime. And then one of the two girls there is a mage, and she is the one who kind of teaches you how magic works in this world. There's 7 different types of magic. 6 are like direct elemental types, which is the 4 elements and light and darkness. And then the 7th one is called null magic. And it's basically if you have an ability that it's specific to you and it doesn't really fall in the other categories, it's a null magic. So generally speaking, very powerful wizards, mages, whatever, will have 3 or 4 of the elements that they are, 3 or 4 of the 7 that they can do, that they're like attuned to. The girl he meets has 2, and her sister has 1. He has all 7 because, of course, he does. And not only that, he can do any null magic spell that has ever existed.
I'm sorry. Stop. I'm done with this. Let's move on.
Yeah. I don't even have to get any further than that, right? Isekai Jesus.
I can't. I'm done. Something else, please. Moriarty the Patriot is great, but it's not an isekai.
What is that?
Oh, that's like Sherlock Holmes, but it's from the perspective of Moriarty, and he's not entirely. It's just showing that he's not entirely a bad guy. He does crime for very good reasons, and it just kind of shows that. But it's not an isekai, so we can move on from it.
No.
I'll talk to you about it after we're done recording.
Well, I think I've said most of my piece. Let me check and see if there's anything else on this document I wanted to talk about. Two subgenres. I wanted to talk briefly maybe about Saga of Tanya the Evil. Oh, I did want to actually, now that I think about it, there was something I wanted to mention, which was most of the time in Isekai, another thing that's a common trait is either when they get transported to another world, they are either directly sent there by the gods, and you know that they're directly sent there by the gods oftentimes, whether that be through reincarnation or summoning, or they are oftentimes some kind of prophesized hero, or they might actually reincarnate as a person who is like very important to that world. Those are all things that happen in isekai that also don't happen in Western stuff. Alternatively, there are a few stories which I wanted to mention: Saga Tanya the Evil and My Life as a Villainess.
I chuckled because the idea of like imagine an isekai anime, right, where you start out in fantasy world and then that person like dies to like a fucking raider attack or whatever the fuck, and they get reincarnated as fucking Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my god, no.
That's Abraham Lincoln vampire slayer, motherfuckers.
That sounds amazing. Oh my god.
We just wrote a fan fiction.
Yeah. Anyway, go on. What
I was gonna say is, so in those two, My Life as a Villainess, All Roads Lead to Doom, and Saga of Tanya the Evil, they are technically he's reincarnated in Saga of Tanya the Evil as just some girl that was born somewhere, but in both cases they either are when they were reincarnated or they become very important to that world, but they're not heroes. They go out of ironically, in My Life as a Villainess, she's reincarnated as the villainess of the story that she was reincarnated into. But because she's a good person, she becomes the hero of the story. In Saga of Tanya the Evil, no, Tanya's the villain. She's the protagonist, but she is 110% the bad guy. She has no qualms murdering whoever she wants, destroying whatever she wants, as long as she proves that being X isn't God.
Okay.
Like, she is evil as fuck. There's a reason it's called the Saga of Tanya the Evil. You do see it from her point of view, and she's human, so she's not 100% evil. There is some semblance of like, she's a good person to certain people. There's a point of view where you could consider her a good person, but from the grand point of view of the world at large, no, she is evil. She is about the most evil person on the planet.
On that planet, anyway.
Yeah. But I wanted to point that out too. So sometimes they can reincarnate as a villain instead of. That's considered sort of a pull or a twist on the trope, rather than normal isekai, as it were. I really want to give Ringo a chance to talk, but I don't know if Ringo has anything to say.
I really don't have much to say.
I was gonna say he told me beforehand, like, I don't have a whole lot to say about this.
I just feel like I feel bad because like last week he comes up with something that we all had shit to say about and we had a really great conversation, and then I come up with something which, as per usual, just kind of ends up leaving him out of it because he's the younger one who hasn't experienced a lot of the stuff we have.
Also, just like I don't have as much of the same interest in watching like that kind of anime anyway.
Mm.
Like to give you an idea, the animes that I've seen
It's like
are
Attack on
like
Titan.
Death Note, Attack on
Yeah.
Death Note, Attack on Titan, fucking
The
Tokyo
Berserk
Ghoul,
manga.
Berserk, the
Actually,
1997 Berserk anime.
actually, Ringo, you might like Moriarty the Patriot because it involves a lot of murder.
Maybe, I don't know. I was gonna watch Blood Sea, but then I just couldn't stand the fucking animation. Like her fucking face is just makes my skin crawl.
You might also like a Kamega Kill because again it involves a lot of murder.
I just say I think if I had to pick an isekai that Ringo would enjoy, I'd have to go with Konosuba. Just because I think he would definitely resonate with Kazuma.
Konosuba is just meme the anime.
It really is.
And it's done so fucking well. It's a fantastic show.
I heard they finally came out with another season of it. I haven't seen it yet.
And that they did a movie in between that as well.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I didn't see that either.
Yeah, I believe the movie goes a lot more into like Megaman's backstory. But yeah, no, they.
Oh, that's the Crimson.
Yeah, that's the one who knows one spell, and it's the most destructive one.
Yeah,
that show's fantastic.
Man, that's a show that prompts video essays like Konosuba's best girls are in fact the worst girls. Because they are. Holy shit, they're bad.
They really are.
I also think Rico would like it because they are the worst girls and they don't hide the fact that they're the worst girls. And oh man, what was I gonna say there? Like Kazuma is not in a relationship with any of them, nor does he really want to be in one. He's kind of like every now and then he considers it, and then they do something. He's like, right, that's why I don't have a relationship with these bitches.
I love how he fucking he has a whole ass. He finds an otaku, or he finds the trail of an otaku, and he's like, no way, this guy invented a robot waifu, and he finds it, and then he's like, oh no.
I don't know what we're talking about. Remind me, is that like
that's the end of season
one?
I
haven't. Oh, is that the big annihilator robot?
No, that's what's inside the big annihilator robot.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, but I was gonna say that's when they're fighting like the city on a giant spider mech.
Yeah, and you have like the it keeps flashing back to like the scientist guy.
Yeah, and I remember he said something about how like
because he was a reincarnated otaku.
Yeah. And he knew some shit, and he knew some science. He was like an electrical engineer or whatever.
Mm.
And he made a giant spider robot with a city on top of it.
Yep, and then also
that annihilates entire cities to keep itself fed.
And then also a mommy dom robot.
Yikes.
I don't recall the mommy dom robot.
Oh, it was like the very last scene of season 1. Where like the Kazuma's like, finally I found his greatest treasure, the waifu robot or whatever the fuck, and he opens the container, and she is whips and high heels, and she's like, get on your knees, master.
Please tell me he immediately murdered her.
I think he had Megaman blow her up. Yeah, that's a great show.
I do know, because I remember reading one of the light novels. I do know they send him after a like a tree that's sentient, and it like entices people to come towards it so it can feast on their bodies.
Oh boy.
And huh?
I said, oh boy.
Yeah, and it's like the way it does that is that it has like someone who looks like a woman, like that comes out of the tree, sort of like a
Mhm.
dryad in D&D.
Uh-huh.
So well, except she's attached to the tree, I guess.
Come over
And
here, join
they
me in
send
the tree.
Kazuma.
This
They
tree.
they send Kazuma specifically because he is so like just numb to this world's women being absolute disappointments that he basically just goes, "Yeah, I don't care, fuck you," and burns her to the ground.
Ah, Kazuma, what a hero.
Yep.
I would love to see just an episode where fucking Kazuma and Subaru switch places for like a day.
Have you watched Isekai Quartet?
I have not. I'm aware that they
I
they
think
meet.
You might like it.
I'm aware that they meet.
My favorite bit is when Subaru is complaining. So it's like obvious to everyone how much one of the two demon girls, I want to say is Rem,
the blue-haired one or
really
the pink-haired
likes
one?
Subaru. It's the blue-haired one that likes Subaru, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that's Rem.
So it's really obvious to everyone how much she likes him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like complaining to Kazuma, like, what a travesty it is that Amelia doesn't like him back the way he likes Amelia. And the thing is, Rem is also like actually a best girl, not like Kazuma's bitches.
Yeah.
And Kazuma has this moment where he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You fucking selfish prick. Holy shit. Do you have any idea how good you have it?" Like, oh my god, it's brilliant. I love it.
That sounds like, yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Kazuma doesn't mince any fucking words, dude. It's
Kazuma,
great.
Kazuma is a fantastic protagonist.
I also love the animosity between Aqua and what's her name? Albedo from Overlord, who's a succubus.
I don't know anything about her other than that she's yandere. That's it. That's all I know.
She's not actually. She is oftentimes depicted that way.
I was gonna say, like, tell that to the internet.
Yeah. Well, she is obsessive, but she's not like I'll murder anyone else who likes my husbando. She has this sort of idea of like what is worthy of him and what is not, but that's not so much brought out of the idea of her being like yandere so much as it's like she kind of has this understanding of she loves him, but he's literally a skeleton, so that's not gonna happen, and she kind of gets that. But there's definitely a sense of like he's also the Lord and Master, and you have to keep a certain level of shit to make sure that he doesn't like lower his standards.
I mean, he's a whole skeleton. I'm pretty sure he could bone her, if you know what I mean.
To be fair, throughout season 1, she is pretty yandere, but by the time season 2 comes around, she's kind of like figured her shit out.
I think I killed Ringo.
She certainly wants him to bone her.
He's all bones, baby.
My favorite thing about that show is like as he continues throughout the show, there's this like right at the beginning they start talking about it because he's reincarnated sort of as this skeletal being, as a lich, an elder lich. He's like, I feel no connection to humanity. I don't feel empathy. I don't feel all this stuff. And he basically goes out of his way to take such actions as he can because he doesn't want to become a monster. Even though he's a monster in body, he doesn't want to become a monster in mind. But at the same time, he has to balance that with the fact that all of his servants are evil as hell. And if they find out that he doesn't want to be evil, they will murder him.
So he's like forced Skeletor.
Yes.
Only
and he always has to come up with like.
I think Skeletor embraced it a little too much.
Well, here's the other thing. So like he has this one servant, Demiurge, who like he has this whole thing where he'll be like, "Ah, yes, I know what you're thinking. It's just like that one time." And then because he doesn't want to look bad, he goes, yes, exactly like that one time. I know exactly the time you are speaking." And then like, well, he'll go off to do something, and Einzel Goen will be like, in his head, he'll be like, "What time are you talking about?" But he can't like say that in front of everybody because then he'll look weak. I feel like that would be easily avoided by just saying, it's like that one time. Remind me. Or for the benefit of those present, remind me. Or something like that. You could probably say something because there's this weird like camaraderie between all of these evil
like,
NPC people.
Yes, just like that one time. I'm sorry.
NPC
Do you know how many civilizations
So the
I've
concept
crushed?
is that they
Which time
were
are
a
you
guild.
talking about?
The concept is that he is the last creator member of a guild that was in a video game called Yggdrasil, and he decided to stay in that video game until the servers logged out. But and it's like a full dive VR game, obviously.
Like
But
SAO type shit.
yeah, but of course, when the servers timed out, the very fake world of Yggdrasil became a very real world, and he was still in it. And so, while all these characters were just NPCs that were like, "Yes, master, I do what you say, master," or whatever, beforehand with no soul, they are all now very much characters with thoughts and ideas and whatnot, and he's having to deal with all of that. They're all evil aligned, some of them horrifyingly so. Like, so Demiurge, for example, he and Einzel Goen will sometimes talk about sheep. When they talk about sheep, they're talking about humans. They skin humans alive to create parchment to make spell scrolls with.
That's fucked up, yo.
Uh-huh. To give you an idea of how evil these people are. And Einzel Goen doesn't want that. But he doesn't actually feel empathy for them. He just doesn't want to become an evil monster. And he can't bring himself to say, "Don't do that," because if he does, he'd be outed as not evil.
Okay, but isn't he like more powerful than all of them?
No. He's very powerful, but he's not more powerful than all of them. And this is proven because he has a fight with so one of his stronger servants, an ancient vampiress, gets like brainwashed in some way, shape, or form. And so she knows she shouldn't be fighting him or whatever, but she can't not do it because that's the brainwashing. So he kills her, but he basically burns every ounce of power he has to accomplish that feat. And then he has to go recover. And then he basically burns all of the gold in his vaults to bring her back to life.
Wow.
Yeah. But there's like, I don't know, you'd have to watch it. There's characters who are definitely more sympathetic. But they're all very powerful and they're all very evil. Except Demiurge, he's not sympathetic at all. He's just fucking evil as shit.
Well, we've hit 2 hours now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
And I should start getting ready to go to D&D.
if there's anything else you want to say, closing statements, gentlemen.
Technically, Isakai isn't the same as Western Isakai. There are differences. I did this whole thing to try to prove that. No, they're all... God damn it.
To prove
No,
that
they're
you
all
can
just isekai.
slowly die.
But I'm
I
I mean,
just
aren't we all?
I just think, that was Gate catching up with you for a second.
Oh, God damn it. Please don't. I don't want it. I don't want it.
Yeah, all I have to say is Konosuba is the best isekai ever.
It probably is, honestly. I swallowed
right.
wrong is what happened.
Well,
this has been the tutorial on Isekai. If you learned something, good for you. I did it right that time.
please let us know in the comments. And please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Oh, hey, before you hit the stop button, when's the next episode coming out
Great question.
on
What
YouTube?
What are we talking about next week?
Oh, that's a good question. It would be
Zeta.
but since he's not here.
Hey, Steve, edit that
for
out.
now, it would be you
made
God
it.
damn it. I
You
can't
made
remember
it
his name.
almost a whole episode, Dave. Almost. And
Zeta.
principally because he wasn't here.
Yeah, that's true. It would be Zeta's turn, but since it's not Beard, I could call you Beard all the time because we already do. But like, what would you do if it turns out to be you who has to speak next week?
Oh boy.
I think this is part of the reason we stopped doing this at the end of episodes. Is
we'll talk about it.
There's someone who's not going to be there.
We'll talk about it after recording. I think I'm not entirely sure at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. And after that awkward interaction, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, motherfuckers.